There's a common misconception that you don't need to worry about osteoporosis until your golden years. Osteoporosis is when your body loses too much bone, makes too little, or both, which can happen as you get older. But if you don't take steps to care for your bones at every age, they can become so weak and brittle that something small as a sneeze or cough can actually cause a fracture. The good news is, it's never too late to prevent bone loss and strengthen already weak bones. On today's program, we'll talk about the causes of osteoporosis, how to prevent it, diagnose it, and the treatments available. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. This is Med Talk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Osteoporosis is also known as a silent disease. Bone loss happens over a long period of time and doesn't hurt. So while many are at risk for osteoporosis, they're often unaware that their bones are worsening until they actually break. To tell us more about this, we have with us today Ms. Josefina Gonzalez. She's a science research specialist at the Food and Nutrition Training Unit of DOST FNRI. We also have Dr. Romel Fernando. He's an orthopedic and spine specialist at St. Luke's Global City and Manila Doctors Hospital. Now, I'll start first with the basic question for Dr. Fernando. What exactly is osteoporosis?
When you say osteoporosis, it basically defines the fact that on a cellular level, we are producing less bone and then we are reducing the mineral content on a cellular level. So bone is living tissue, no? So ibig sabihin nun, we produce bone and then we also remove bone cells on a cellular level. And that there's a delicate balance. Now, the problem with osteoporosis is we're not producing enough bone and yet we're removing the bone stock or the minerals of our bone. Therefore, you produce bone that is weak, bone that is brittle, and bone that is eventually unstable.
So osteoporosis is a disease that weakens your bones and most commonly occurs, among other places, the spine. In fact, spinal fractures are actually almost twice as common as other fractures linked with osteoporosis. Dr. Romel, where else can osteoporosis occur?
Okay, so osteoporosis, all the fractures that we see, commonly, yes, it's the spine. We see also people with wrist fractures, okay? We also see people with hip fractures. Osteoporosis can affect all of your bones, but the weight-bearing bones are the ones that are most affected. So hip, your spine, and when you fall, you tend to catch yourself. So on your wrist, you get wrist fractures as well.
Now, to keep your bones strong, your body breaks down old bone and replaces it with new bone tissue. But as you get older, your body breaks down more bone than it puts back. Now, Dr. Romel, what happens in someone who has osteoporosis? What does this look like?
Okay, so let's take for example an elderly woman. Okay, because there are different types of osteoporosis. One is postmenopausal. So we see this in elderly women. What will happen eventually is their bones are protected by their estrogen. But what happens over time is because they go into menopause, the lack of that hormone induces more of bone resorption. So bone resorption is when we remove old bone, right? But it doesn't induce the bone formation.
Now, as you can see, the healthy bone looks like a honeycomb, and while the holes and spaces in the osteoporotic bone are much larger than in the healthy bone. Now, Ms. Josie, anong mga simptomas na pwedeng makita kapag ang isang tao ay osteoporotic?
Dahil nga po ito ay silent disease, so hindi mo namamalayan while you are still young. No? Hindi mo siya alam kung meron ka nga unless ma-fracture ka at tapos medyo nanghihina na yung mga buto mo. So, habang tumatanda, mas lalo pong nararamdaman na may tumutunog sa buto ko. Di ba? May lagato, parang ganon.
Now remember, many are unaware that they have osteoporosis until a bone breaks. And these are a few of the symptoms to look out for before that happens. Sometimes your doctor might be able to diagnose low bone mass before it fractures, and this is called osteopenia. Now, Dr. Romel, can you tell us more about osteopenia?
Yes, I would like to add also the concept of, we call it peak bone mass. Okay, so Basically, ang ibig sabihin ng peak bone mass, once we reach puberty, tayo ay tumatangkad, di ba? So, yung katawan natin, nag-iipon na yan ng buto, nag-iipon ng calcium, and in that process, we achieve peak bone mass. But peak bone mass is a small window. Small window meaning, as we get older, after we achieve peak bone mass, our body mass index starts to decline. So it's important that very early we get kids, young individuals, to exercise, to have adequate calcium and vitamin D in their diet, because once they achieve peak bone mass, from there the decline will start. And the thing is, that's the decline from normal bone mass to osteopenia to osteoporosis.
Now, whether your doctor calls it osteopenia or low bone mass, consider this a warning. You have to take extra steps to protect your bones. One of the ways to catch osteoporosis early on is if one of your parents has had a broken bone. Can you please explain, Dr. Romel, how osteoporosis runs naman in the family?
Okay, so there are genetics involved when it comes to osteoporosis. Definitely, the more common risk factors is still age. Okay, the other risk factor is still gender, because in females, because they have a steady supply of estrogen and suddenly menopause wala na, definitely they're more prone to that type of osteoporosis. Male, however, they have a steady supply of testosterone. The decline is less, but definitely it will still be there. So at a certain age, nag-equalize na yung level ng yung severity ng osteoporosis between men and women. Genetics do play a role in this, but the more common factors is still age.
Okay, that's why it's also important that you share all of these with your orthopedic surgeon. Now, aside from a family history of broken bones, there exists other risk factors and causes of osteoporosis. It's most common among older people, especially older women. Now, research shows it affects about 25% of women aged 65 and over, and 5% of men aged 65 and over as well. Now, Dr. Romel, can you explain this to us?
Osteoporosis in men does not appear as early, no? So I'll go back to the concept of peak bone mass, okay? So skeletal maturity for men is actually later than women. And again, because of that, they have this ability now to deposit more in terms of bone mass. Women and osteoporosis, the link there is the fact that when your estrogen is on the decline, when you develop menopause, your bone resorption increases. Because it's sudden, it's a very common incident to have postmenopausal osteoporosis. Although around age 70 to 75, nag-equalize na yan, yung babae at lalaki. Yung osteoporosis nila, pareho na halos ng severity.
While osteoporosis is most common in older people, it can affect children as well. We'll discuss this after a short break. Keep it right here on CNN Philippines. Although rare, it's possible for children to develop osteoporosis. You build 90% of your bone mass by the time you're 18 or 20 years old. But when young ones lose bone mass during these prime bone building years, this can put them at serious risk for osteoporosis. Welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk, where your health comes first. To check for osteoporosis, your doctor will likely suggest a bone density test. Dr. Romel, can you walk us through this test?
Okay, so a bone density test is usually required when we suspect somebody has osteoporosis. It's basically a way to measure the weight-bearing bones, how dense they are. And based on that test, there's a grading system. Okay, so the grading system will tell you whether your patient is considered normal, osteopenic, or osteoporotic. And patients who are considered osteoporotic have to undergo treatment.
That's right, because in the past, osteoporosis was suspected if you've broken a bone. Now, this bone density test allows you to check your bone strength even before this happens. And if you find that you're diagnosed with osteoporosis, there are several medications available for treatment. Can you tell us some of these and how does it work?
Okay, so when it comes to the treatment, we divide it into several groups. No? So the first group is the self-help, meaning on your own, ano bang pwede mong gawin? Obviously, one is adequate calcium and vitamin D. So usually, they recommend that you get 30 minutes of exposure to sunlight. But it has to be outdoors. It can't be through the windows kasi yung kailangan mo na UV light, hindi tumatagos yan sa bintana. Okay, so that's one. Two is weight-bearing exercises. Weight-bearing exercises, they beef up your bone stock. Okay? We have a saying in orthopedic that form follows function. So in other words, if you subject your body to stressors like weight-bearing, exercise, running, jogging, will over time build up. There's also a sense of balance. Again, this is what that's sometimes neglected, no? Because we see a lot of falls in elderly. Nahuhulog sila, no, off balance, right? They wake up in the middle of the night, they go to the bathroom, and somewhere along the way they slip, di ba? All these things can be adequately monitored, di ba? You just need to seek a specialist. After that, there's already pharmacological treatment. Ngayon, yung pharmacological treatment, maraming klase yan. It will just depend on how you and your doctor wish to proceed. Do you do surgery on osteoporotic patients? There are some that require some type of surgery, but not all. And definitely, somebody with osteoporosis should definitely see a doctor so that they can make the appropriate treatment.
Yes, that's why it's very important na may kausap kayong doktor, especially an orthopedic surgeon, when it comes to proper diagnosis and the treatment of osteoporosis. Now, Ms. Josie, anong mga tips niyo para to promote bone strength, lalo na sa mga bata?
Tama po si Doc no, na neglect yung vitamin D kasi yung mga nutrients natin, mga vitamins and minerals natin, may pairing siya. Hindi siya magagamit fully ng katawan kung wala siyang partner. Like for example, calcium. Kailangan niya ng vitamin D to be able to be absorbed by our body, no, para magamit fully ng ating katawan. So, kailangan ng vitamin D. Now, yung mga misconception about can I get vitamin D directly from the sun? Yun yung mga tanong na, pag nagpa-araw ba ako, magkakaroon na ba ako ng vitamin D? Actually, hindi po, no, because yung vitamin D nasa katawan na natin yun, that is already present there, but yung tulong po ng araw, yung UV lights, it will synthesize. Mas activate niya po si vitamin D para mas magamit ng katawan. And then kumakain ka ng mataas ang calcium. So silang dalawa, patuloy nilang magagamit fully para po mapakinabangan ng ating katawan. And yung mga sources ng vitamin D natin, aside from the sunlight, na kailangan magpa-araw tayo, meat products natin na yan, hindi lang yung processed but fresh na mga meat, meron po siyang vitamin D. And also yung mga vegetables natin, katulad na lang ng mga leafy vegetables, meron din siyang certain amount ng vitamin D. Pati po yung mga eggs and milk, present din po si vitamin D dyan. Kaya po, para maging balanse po yan, para pareho nilang magamit, kumain din po tayo ng mga rich in vitamin D, not only in calcium. So yung question niyo po, sir, about the, ano po yun, sir, yung tungkol sa mga bata, yun, dapat po hikayatin natin silang kumain as much as possible po, na dapat maliit pa lang sila, aware na sila na ano ba ang sustansya na dulot nito at ano ba ang magiging function nito sa katawan ko, para aware ka na paglaki ko, dapat kung halimbawa kumain na pala ako ng maayos, hindi ko dadanasin na magkaroon ng osteoporosis.
Now, while there's no way to reverse osteoporosis, there are many ways to manage it and prevent it from worsening. We'll go through these after a short break. We're your connection to healthcare. Stay with us on CNN Philippines. It's never too early or too late to care for your bones. And while there are unavoidable factors, there are steps you can take to help strengthen your bones. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Dr. Romel, you've mentioned earlier throughout the program the benefits of calcium, vitamin D, on mild osteoporosis as well. I'd like to give the viewers an idea on how you could treat that stage, mild osteoporosis, all the way to how severe it can get.
When it comes to osteoporosis or maybe osteopenia, or maybe osteoporosis that did not lead to a fragility fracture, it's all about giving proper advice as to weight-bearing exercise, taking their medication, including calcium and vitamin D in their diets. Unfortunately, there are certain patients who come to you with fractures. So in other words, nabalian na sila. Now, some fractures you can treat conservatively, meaning hindi mo dadalhin sa operating room. But unfortunately, there are some that you really need to do surgery on. Okay, so the more common ones we see are the ones that fracture their wrist or fracture their hip, and unfortunately, some also fracture their spine.
Dr. Romel, how about those who have osteoporosis on the latter years and medyo extreme na yung kanilang condition, especially with their spine o yung tinatawag na kuba na sila with that? Maaari pa bang ma-address itong condition nila?
These cases are very challenging. But for the most part, the treatment options are individualized.
Yes.
So it's hard to generalize as to what specifically you will do. But definitely, you will need a lot of disciplines, a lot of specialists on board to figure out what's best to do for them.
Okay, very good. Dito pumapasok ang sinasabi ni Dr. Romel that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Now, Ms. Josie, pagdating sa nutrition ng isang tao, anong dapat tignan ng isang nanay para ibigay sa kanilang bata para maganda ang nutrition nila when it comes to bone growth?
Ayan po. Sir, yung dapat po yung mga pagkain na rich in calcium, yan, ano po. So actually, ang sinasabi natin sa DOST-FNRI, we have developed recommendations that we should include actually yung lahat ng grupo, no, meron tayong go, grow, and glow, no. But if we are talking about osteoporosis here, para ma-prevent natin yon at para mas mapalakas natin ang ating mga buto at ang ating mga ngipin, mas padamihin natin yung mga pagkain na mayaman sa calcium. Ito po tulad ng gatas, no? Ang mga bata, kailangan nila ng milk habang sila ay lumalaki, no? Because ang milk ay mayaman sa calcium and other milk product. But we can also use other sources na pwedeng i-substitute natin sa milk na mataas din po sa calcium. Katulad na lang po ng mga maliliit na isda. Yung mga dilis natin, tawilis, ayan, mga sardinas, and mga maliliit na galunggong because we are eating the bones. So, nandoon po yung calcium sa mga buto nila. And yung mga green leafy vegetables natin, yung mga madadahon na berdeng gulay, tulad na lang po ng spinach.
Now, that being said, Ms. Josie, meron ba kayong may share sa ating mga viewers na mga pagkain na dapat iwasan para hindi ma-promote ang osteoporosis?
So ito po halimbawa yung coffee, it contains caffeine. So pag too much coffee po ang intake natin, it will inhibit po yung ating calcium absorption sa katawan natin. Presence of phosphate sa mga carbonated drinks natin, ito yung phosphate po, ito yung nag-enhance ng flavor sa mga cola drinks natin. Ano? Kapag sobrang carbonated drinks ang iniinom natin, it will inhibit also calcium absorption.
Now, bago tayo umalis sa Ms. Josie, mabilisan lang, meron ba kayong message para sa ating mga viewers?
Aside from dietary, no, meron din po tayo dapat po ay holistic, no? Dapat yung components ng healthy lifestyle, hindi lang in terms of diet, but also we manage stress. Ma-exercise din yung mga bones natin. Ayan po, inat-inat tayo. So, aside from that po, yung mga lifestyle natin, for example, i-avoid natin yung drinking and smoking.
And of course, from Dr. Romel, do you have a message for our viewers about osteoporosis?
Yes, it's never too early to start when it comes to dealing with osteoporosis because even at a young age, if you exercise, if you treat your body properly, if you take adequate calcium and vitamin D, you're actually fighting osteoporosis at a very early age. So this is something that you should start, and this is something you should carry with you as you grow older. That way, when you're at that age where osteoporosis is supposed to strike, you're actually in a better position to deal with it. And hopefully, you don't need to see me or any of my colleagues to have surgery done on you.
Very well said. Thank you, Science Research Specialist Ms. Josefina Gonzalez and Orthopedic and Spine Specialist Dr. Romel Fernando. We appreciate your time very much. Our goal here on the program is to help you better understand the care you need and deserve. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. Join us again next time on Med Talk Health Talk. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you for watching CNN Philippines.